Okay, on this episode, we are going to make potato gnocchi and an in a butter herb sauce with assorted mixed vegetables. And the other menu item got corrupted. But the first step for this one, you want to scoop out as much as the potatoes you can from the peel and place it on your drum sieve. And you want it to be really fast because you need the potato to stay steaming hot to prevent it from becoming gummy. And you don't want to try and force it through a sieve when it's gummy because then it's glue. And it will be too thick to mash through the masher with the ricer or tammy with ease. And I used a spoon here, but you want to scrape it in through the sieve or ricer as evenly as possible. And this here is also one of the best ways to make mashed potatoes without getting any lumps. And now you want to scrape the bottom of the sieve. And now you want to clean that as soon as possible to make sure the potato does not get permanently adhered to the drum sieve. It is also known as a tammy. Okay, so you got your egg yolk, and now you want to drizzle that in. Real nice. Now you also want to get your flour, and you want to do this about a tablespoon at a time. If memory serves correct, 8 ounces of all-purpose flour. And now you want to take a dough blender, fork, or your hands, and you want to blend that as finely as possible. And you also want to keep adding a tablespoon of flour at a time once it's fully mixed and blended. And then you just want to repeat this process until you run out of the 8 ounces of flour. And then meanwhile, I'll talk about things I could have done to be a bit better. One of the things is I should have used a saran wrap on the counter because it's stuck about here, or add flour to the work surface, or use one of those non-stick silicone or plastic cutting boards. You know, the cheap, flimsy ones that about thick as a piece of cardstock, usually plastic. Or you can use a marble slab. That's popular with noodle making. And now you want to dust it in flour as long with the work surface after you knead it. And now you want to form a log about half of an inch thick. And now you want to cut it. And you want to cut it in, I mean, what I cut it into was simple coins or medallions. And you could be real careful not to dent the yoki if you wish, but in my opinion, it doesn't look like a real handmade pasta unless it has significant imperfections. Each piece should look roughly the same, but just slightly different enough to still show that it's not perfect because it was made by hand. And now what I did here was take a bag of, you can use flour, but I used this other type of flour in the box. It didn't have a label. I think the recipe called it Saduki flour or something like that. I'm not good at reading. And you just want to coat the gnocchi as evenly as possible. Now we are in the sauce. So I started with a bit of olive oil. And then when the water's heating up, sauteed carrots with cloves and paprika. Ground clove. And now you want to saute that until it's aromatic. And then you want to add some leftover asparagus from a previous box that I did not know was this box or not because it all got put in the same box and I didn't look in it before I did the video. I also browned what I believe was a piece of duck. And I browned it on both sides, get a nice even caramelization, the duck. And now you add the asparagus. And now we add the entire can of artichoke hearts, which have been thoroughly drained and then minced. And now we mix that all up and let it fry for a bit to remove the essence of thy can from the artichoke. And flip the duck. Refill the pot of boiling water because you underestimated the amount of time it would take to make the sauce and components. Oh, that little dog in the background there is called Lily. Tasting it to make sure it's done, and it is. And now we set that off to the side. Pan's too big for the stove, or else I would have put it on a small burner in the back. Now we remove the duck, turn off that pan, and we're going to recycle the oil from that pan that contains a wee bit of the duck essence and throw it in to the big non-stick pan, which we're also going to add our butter to. Butter. And you want to let that melt, and now you destem all of the thyme leaves. And now, looking back at this, I could have probably achieved the same exact thing if I just threw the entire sprigs in and let it simmer. And you want to let those herbs fry in there until it becomes aromatic. And well, it looks like it skipped. Okay, so let me pause this. Yeah, some of the footage got corrupted here and there. So once one was done cooking the thyme in the butter, one then you froze in the broccoli and 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, pre-minced in a jar, and then let it steam the broccoli until it is light green in color. Then we add more butter to the pan because the broccoli absorbed a lot of it, and there's definitely not going to be enough butter for everything to be properly coated in the sauce. And now I take the finished gnocchi after you boiled it, let it float for 20 seconds, and then fry it in the butter until it's golden brown. And that brings us to where we are now. And you also want to stir the gnocchi when it was boiling really well, or else you would have a few fuse, and mine two appear to have fused into one big one. So we're looking for it to caramelize on the outside. And one could watch a video when he's waiting for this to brown. And I decided to go ahead and throw in the pieces of duck from the duck breast to let them brown more on the flats. And I did this in the butter with the gnocchi to save on pans. And it imparted a little more flavor into the butter. And now we want to mix and let brown. And it's done browning. Now we add the broccoli, then mix that in. And the broccoli you want to pull just before it finished steaming in the butter. And now you want to throw it in with the gnocchi to let it fry in the butter. And more of this video is corrupted than I originally thought. So now you add the artichoke mixture, mix that in, let it simmer a little bit, call it and then plate it up, which I do have photos of. And then each plate, I plated up 2 plates, and I put 3 pieces of the duck on it with it. And then that's pretty much it. But I had a problem with video corrupting this episode. And the entire next segment is nothing but corrupted video. So the other dish I made was with the, if memory serves correct, eggplant, what was left of the kelp from the ramen, some dried mushrooms that were left over as well. I think a yellow pepper, if memory serves correct. Some Parmesan. Oh, and I forgot, the previous dish is topped with Parmesan crumbles, because this house does not have a cheese grater. That, and I like the aesthetic and texture of Parmesan crumbles better than grating it. It still imparts the same flavor, but it adds more. It adds a fine note of texture. Some freshly harvested, vine-ripened cherry tomatoes from my hydroponic setup, which I'm going to insert a photo of here. So, for the eggplant, one made it into small dice. One also diced the yellow pepper, and one filled the bottom of the big red pan you see in the last segment. And I added a little bit of olive oil to coat the bottom of the pan, and then I added the eggplant, if memory serves correct. And meanwhile, I had the kelp and mushrooms steeping off to the side as this was cooking. And I cooked the eggplant until it was partially caramelized. But before that, I added ground clove, ground ginger, and paprika, all at decent quantities. And then one lets the eggplant caramelize on every surface it can after you add the yellow pepper, which has been minced. If I'm forgetting an ingredient, it probably went in. There was nothing in the bottom of the box after both of these were done, besides Parmesan cheese for topping in the container I brought the homegrown tomatoes in. And also, I didn't have enough tomatoes from my setup, so I had to use a can of tomato later on. But so once the eggplant is fully golden brown, around that time, the steeping mixture should be ready to reduce by 1/2, and I started with 2 cups, reduce that to 1 cup, and then remove the contents, the dried mushrooms and kelp, and then mix I'm gonna add the liquid to the eggplant, and you want to let the eggplant simmer in it. Also, the ricotta gnocchi was made after the sauce because it said in the recipe, have your choice of sauce ready to be heated in a small saucepan. And then one also added a little garlic, a 8-ounce can of diced tomatoes, which was drained, and then I continue to let that cook down. And I also then called it, after I let it simmer to a point where the majority of the eggplant was dissolved within the sauce, and the peel of the eggplant was left behind in a form of a rind. You don't want to overcook the eggplant, just get it to this point, and most of it has been dissolved into the sauce. And then stir that up one last time, and set it off to the side. Make your ricotta gnocchi, which the footage of that got corrupted. So the thing is, I made the ricotta gnocchi before the segment you saw earlier, and I misjudged the size, and I made them a little too big. And I mean by, I would say maybe they were an inch long and about half of an inch thick. So for the potato dumplings, I cut it up smaller because of that. And then when it came to plating, I mixed the gnocchi in with the eggplant mixture, and then served it on a plate, topped with some thyme. And I also added soy sauce to the a little bit of soy sauce to the eggplant mixture when it was caramelizing. And I think that was it. I plated it by topping it with thyme and some Parmesan crumbles. And I believe that's it. And sorry for the lack of footage, but I still do have images which will be cycling through this narration beyond this point. And I hope this meets the expectations of the college. And with the humble excuse of technology doesn't work 100% of the time, and end. Oh wait, before, if I forgot to mention an ingredient, I did use every last ingredient that was in the box, including ingredients that I don't think were originally in the box but got put in there due to storage. Lack of storage. So I used them to be sure, because I didn't know which items were what. And end.